Now, the data rates for wireless networking do change depending on your distance from the access point. Of course, if you're sitting right underneath the access point, based on how wireless antennas work, actually you're going to get very little coverage at all. If you move just a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, your coverage should be great. Matter of fact, if you're using 11B, you should be looking at about 11 megabits per second. 11A or 11G, you might be looking at 54 megabits per second. Now, as you travel farther and farther away from the antenna, your data rates will steadily decrease, going down to as little as 1 megabit per second on an 11B network. So realize that the coverage area, depending on your ability to reach the access point, has scaling points, and it's not going to scale, like partway between 11 and 11 and a half. No, it'll cut you off directly. So if it's 11, you're right next to it, and you move away a little bit, it'll drop immediately down to 5.5. You move a little bit farther away, it's going to drop you to 2. A little bit farther away, drops you to 1. It doesn't do anything in between. So it chooses those 4 data rates in the case of 11B. As you can see with 11A, it's 11A or 11G. It has a lot more steps starting at 54 and then going all the way down. But in those cases, it's still quite a steep drop as it goes from one ring to another ring in these concentric rings moving away from the access point. As far as the configuration of your access point, really it's a very basic device. It needs an IP address, subnet mask, default gateway, all the basic things that any IP device would need. So we can go out and SSH over to it and configure it if necessary. Or it's possible you could be using an access point that doesn't have any configuration, and it's learning all of its configuration from a wireless LAN controller. But if you have an autonomous access point, it just needs the basics. You then need to configure it for the wireless protocol it's going to use, whether it's A, B, and G, or just A, or just G. So whatever type of radio frequency is going to be sent out via the access point. You can then play around with the power adjustments you need for the antennas, or change the antennas to change the coverage you want for your access of your wireless network. You can also adjust the channel depending on whether it's A and you have the 23 choices of channels, or if it's 11B or G, you have 1, 6, or 11 to choose from. Lastly, you need to configure the service parameters, set your SSID, service set identifier, to identify the wireless network that you're going to be deploying, as well as choosing both your authentication method and your encryption method for your network.